Hello and greetings, fellow StarCrafters. Welcome back to game number 2 between the players aTnCloud, which is, by the way, stands for Alternative Attacks Cloud. Alternative Attacks being the team that he joined. He used to be part of Meet Your Makers and is now part of, as you can see, Alternative Attacks. And his opponent is going to be Empire.Kas. This map is this map Daybreak? Yes, this map is Daybreak. Yeah. Okay. This map is Daybreak, which is, it's become a much more popular map after the GSL. I believe the GSL was the first tournament to use it, if I remember correctly. And, but I could be wrong on that, so, you know, don't hold my word for it. This is a very, very macro-oriented map, simply because the distance to your opponent is so long. You have to go all the way up, down, up this way, down this ramp, and then you have to go across here, then cross here, and then up here into your opponent's natural. Or there are rocks, and then you can go this way as well. You can zigzag this direction and up that way. Or there are also rocks in the middle that you can bust through and go through those. And then there are 2 Xel'Nagas on each side. And then there are tons and tons of expansions. The map actually almost divides itself for you as you just kind of go up and down. Each player gets 4 bases and a 5th base right there. And kind of depending, if you're looking at the minimap right now, and kind of depending on the matchup, it depends what kind of maps you're both going to take. Now, one thing you see kind of a lot of Terran players do, actually, or at least that I've noticed Korean players doing on this map in Terran vs. Terrans, is potentially even, you can either do a 1-Rax fast expand without gas, or command center first. However, both players have opted actually for refinery first openings. So, I would expect to be seeing a lot of very gas-heavy builds. Either, I mean, I'm 90% certain that's either going to be Blue Flame Hellion drops, or just Blue Flame Hellions, although usually you don't need to get gas first for those, although you can. It could be double factory Hellions as well, although that's a little rarer, or it could be cloaked Banshees, is what we're most likely going to be seeing out of these players. And we did see kind of strange all-in of the previous game from Alternative Attacks Cloud, and I don't know, I guess his future is cloudy following that game. So it remains to be seen. We do see factories from both players almost at exact same times, the Marines almost exactly time, so the builds are actually mirrored, although it's worth noting that Empire.Kas is actually slightly behind. What is that? Behind by like 10 seconds actually on his orbital command. Did he? I wonder if he accelerated his factory and then delayed his orbital as a result of accelerating his factory. I think that's might have been what's happening, because his factory is just a shade faster. It's not that much faster. I'm not exactly sure why his orbitals are slightly delayed. Oh, he might have let the SCV finish in. Well, actually, the timings are changed. But anyway, so it is just going to be a little bit delayed there. And we're going to see exactly what happens with that. Looks like we're going to be seeing Blue Flame Hellions coming out from Empire.Kas, as he's actually building a Hellion there. Oh, and then the starport means we're going to be seeing Banshees. I thought he was getting it because the tech lab on the being built on the barracks, actually. Now, one thing I've actually seen a decent amount on this map is cheese, as it's a map where people don't really expect you to cheese them. I've seen proxy gateways, actually, which were placed like right here. I've seen double barracks, which were placed, I think, out of the scouting path up here. And then I've seen like even barracks placed inside here, which allowed to cheese against Zerg players. So, kind of interesting that neither player has opted to cheese. Of course, that's not exactly the best option given all circumstances, but it's good to throw into your build every once in a while, just to, I mean, make sure your opponent's scouting properly. That Hellion actually got a pretty good shot off on those Marines, and if it aims correctly, could barely not take that Marine out, and is going to have to run away because the alternative Hellion is going to chase it down, and if it stops, it is going to die, as it is at a lonely 12 health, and Hellions deal 14 damage when they fire against light units. Looks like the Banshee is going to be on the way for both players, and one moment as the phone is now ringing. Okay, that phone call was not important, or at least not quite as important as StarCraft. Looks like Empire.Kas was able to get his Hellion back inside. He has now started his expansion. It's important to note that Cloud has actually not started his expansion. Let's go ahead and take a look at his unit count. Looks like he's going to be going for a Hellion Marine push. This is somewhat popular. It is going to be mitigated slightly by the fact that Kas does have a wall in right here, which its Marine Hellion will destroy a wall fairly quickly, but it will give Kas a little bit of time to prepare. He does not have a bunker though, and he actually has very limited forces right here, so this could be very deadly right now, actually. And it's especially deadly by the fact that there is a Banshee with this, which should be able to pick off the Hellions or at least scare them away. Which now there is a Viking coming out, which will deal with the Banshee very quickly. But at the same time, he does have all these Marines right here, so Kaz is going to want to bring those Hellions up, be able to target fire as many of the Marines as they can, as long as they are grouped up, and instead he's actually just taking a lot of damage on his Hellions right now. I think he was controlling his Banshee, which I think his Banshee was taken out. Looks like he's landing the Viking. His Hellions are actually lining up, though, and being pulled. I don't think he's lost too many SCVs quite yet, but they're all lining up right now. Oh my god, so many SCVs just died right there, and the rest are at such low health. Empire.Kas with a huge mistake right there, bringing tons of SCVs. Okay, so they're now even on SCVs, which actually isn't too bad considering the fact that Empire.Kas has a expansion and his opponent does not. Although I think this expansion did just finish, however this one's orbital's already done, so it's already start producing SCVs. But look at all these hurt SCVs, which are very, very vulnerable to any sorts of additional Banshees which come out. Even if he has a Viking, he will lose a decent amount of SCVs to those Banshees. He is going for a counterattack right now. And let's go ahead and take a look at the Workers Lost tab. Okay, so his Banshee did a decent amount of damage as well. It did kill 10 while I was watching the other push. But it was taken out, and that's why Kaz did not quite perfectly control that push and did lose a decent amount of forces. Looks like that Raven is actually probably going to be taken out. He did land his Viking to make sure that it was not to be able to be picked off by his opponent's Vikings. Very smart move there. He doesn't want to lose that unnecessarily. Actually, he was able to save the Raven, which is kind of surprising to me. Nice little box out with the turret and the Marines right there on the bunker. So very nice job. Looks like Empire.Kas is not going to opt for a turnaround quite yet. He is getting, he is actually opting for mech play. I would say that mech play, even with the Blue Flame Hellion nerf, which I believe, let's go ahead and double check. Oh, we won't be able to double check quite yet. But I believe that this is the newest version of the map. I'm 90% certain. It is the newest version of the game, so that Infernal Pre-Igniter only does +5 damage. Does he have a medevac coming in? Yes, indeed, we will be seeing a... I don't think that he has Blue Flame, does he? Oh, he does have Blue Flame. Okay. We will be seeing a Blue Flame Hellion drop, and this is the nerfed version of Blue Flame. As you can see, it does 19 damage, not 24. So he's got the Vikings in here. He's just going to go ahead and land the Vikings to deal with his opponent's Hellions. Actually, fairly too soon, I would say, to land his Vikings. Unless he was... I don't know. I mean, I would land the Vikings at the same time that the Hellions are being dropped. But the Hellions will be able to get off. It's possible he's just trying to see if there are any Vikings in the way. And able to deal a pretty good amount of damage to his opponents. Looks like his Hellions were taken out in fairly short order. However, the Vikings are going to land and should be able to clean up the rest of these. Let's see exactly how much the score was even. It is now 14-10, so he killed 6 additional workers during that attack, which is a pretty successful attack considering he did not lose any of his Vikings. And I believe he got the medevac out as well. Where's the medevac? Let's see, does he have a medevac? Oh no, the medevac actually did in fact get caught by the Vikings on its way out. So, still pretty good, considering the amount of lost revenue from those SCVs that were taken out. There is a group of Ravens and Vikings on the prowl right now, possibly looking for drops, also being able to spot those Hellions that are moving across. So he should definitely be prepared for this. He already does have a bunker, which should be able to deal with it quite nicely. Also worth noting is that Empire.Kas has started his third right now, so it looks like he's been going into macro mode more so than his opponent in both games, actually, as he will have his third. He had his second up before his opponent, and he will have his third up before his opponent. The Vikings and the Raven are still flying through. Looks like they will be able to get a pretty good scout on his opponent. He might also opt to drop them and try to do a little bit of harass there as these Vikings, I'm going to have to go ahead and switch to busy. Alright. As these Vikings, if they land, could deal a lot of damage to these SCVs as they are quite hurt at this point in time. It looks like Kaz does have a little force hanging out at the potential third of Cloud just to make sure he's not expanding. Able to take out that one last Viking right as it was landed, and nice turret drop. Able to not only take out the Viking, but take out a Hellion as well. It looks like he's just going to drop the Vikings as well. Meanwhile, counterattack from these Blue Flame Hellions is going to deal a lot of damage from Kaz. Pretty good control, though, is going to be able to prevent the majority of the damage right now. Meanwhile, the SCVs are being pulled. The SCVs being pulled is a horrible thing to happen to him right now, actually. I'm not sure why I ended up picking up those Vikings, as the Raven is not important as taking out all of these SCVs, which are all in the red health. But if he's able to keep a Viking alive, he should be able to actually... Oh, no, that Thor is going to prevent any sort of things as he... Okay, so not quite sure what Cloud decided to pick up right there, as he probably wanted to protect the Raven. But first of all, the Raven was taken out anyway by the Thor. Not that he knew it was coming, but he didn't even bother to move it out of the way. But if he kept him on the ground, it would have first of all made Kaz engaging those harder with his Vikings. And second of all, he would have gotten a lot more SCV kills as they were all pulled at attacking the Vikings, and there were so few SCVs. I'm going to go to the units lost tab to see how the other attack went. Looks like it is 17 to 25 killed, so Cloud has killed actually more SCVs than Empire.Kas has at this point in time. He also has a 13 supply lead and a very large army of Hellions coming in. The Thor should do nicely against those. However, it looks like Cloud does have a lot of Blue Flame Hellions. SCVs are actually being pulled right now, so Cloud could be killing even more SCVs of Kas at this point in time. Looks like the Thor is able to be muscled down by the Vikings as well as the Siege Tank from behind, dealing a lot of extra DPS. And these Blue Flame Hellions should be dealing even more damage right now to Empire.Kas' workers, which are now being pulled, and all in a straight line right now. Able to take a lot of damage right there. Looks like he will barely be able to clean this up. But the question is exactly what Kas is. He is now 30 behind. He is 18 behind in workers. Both players producing about the same amount of workers. But Cloud looks to be in a pretty good position right now. He is behind an expansion, and Kas is actually building an additional expansion right now. Not sure why he quite decided to siege up right there. I suppose it provides a pretty good protection for his Blue Flame Hellions. And the Siege Tank is pretty low on health, so it can't do too much good outside of its landing. Looks like additional Blue Flame Hellions as well as some Vikings are going to be able to move up. Those Vikings will almost surely land to provide some additional support for his Blue Flame Hellions. Once he takes out his opponent's Blue Flame Hellions, he should be able to kill those mules as well as the SCVs that are mining right here and basically just be able to take out Empire.Kas. And looks like the Thor is going to be able to come down. That Thor should be able to clean up this little force nicely. And there is a pretty good saturation right here. So the game is not quite over yet. But Empire.Kas definitely has a large hill to climb. Looks like even more SCVs are being pulled. Blue Flame Hellions are dealing a lot of damage to those. It actually looks like the Thor is going to get taken out just barely by the Siege Tank. Right before the Siege Tank gets cleaned up by the Blue Flame Hellions. Not often that I can say that, except the Siege Tank lives. One more shot, Blue Flame Hellion will take it out right there. Vikings are going to land before the other Vikings take it out, and the Siege Tank is going to try to head home as well. Probably he could turn around and fight right here because Siege Tanks do quite well against Blue Flame Hellions, and we see a bunch of walking Vikings right now, as well as the Siege Tank doing engagements. Looks like Cloud's forces were able to take out that Viking. Siege Tank is going to siege up as well, and the Vikings are going to land and start dealing even more damage to Empire.Kas. He is still up against the ropes as he's not able to mount any sort of serious force, and more units from Cloud keep on streaming in. Looks like Cloud actually has an orbital right there and is well overstocked on that expansion. However, it looks like he probably will be able to snipe this out. I don't think, yes, he has no idea that his opponent has a third right now. Not sure if he's going to be able to take this out. I'm not sure taking off was a very good idea at that exact point in time, as the Thor is able to deal a decent amount of damage to those Vikings. However, the 3 Siege Tanks are cleaning up nicely, and the Thor will go down pretty quickly. However, it is going to take a Siege Tank with it, and Kas is just going to be forced to GG out of this game. Very nice push from Cloud, actually, in that game, and a lot of simultaneous action going on, as you see when Blue Flame Hellions race across each other, and landed Vikings are killing all of Kas's SCVs. Now, if I had to choose one moment in the game that would kind of be the turnaround moment, it would be when Kas decided to send his SCVs back onto one mineral patch. When he sent them all into one mineral patch, and the 2 Hellions were able to just target fire all of those. And he did kill like tons and tons of SCVs, although if they were low enough health, he would have killed all of them. But he hit almost all of them, and he brought so many SCVs down to like 7 health. And when he brought him down to such low health, it meant when the Viking harassment came later and the turrets were placed later, he was able to get a lot of free SCV kills simply off of that, as there weren't any other forces in the base. So Kas just had to pull SCVs to attack, which, you know, if it's full health SCVs, they're going to last kind of a while against 4 or 5 Vikings. Not too long, because DPS of 4 or 5 Vikings is pretty good, but at least a lot longer. They won't go down to like such a few amount of numbers. And, you know, Kas did have that additional base, right? So you're talking about a relatively minor difference that ended up not mattering in this game. This game also teaches us that having an additional base isn't necessarily everything, just because if your opponent is producing more units than you at a certain amount of time, even if you have more income than them, more mules in this case, than your opponent, if your opponent keeps putting additional pressure on you and you're just not able to really stabilize at that point in time, you can fall apart despite having a superior economy. So economy, while important, is not always the most important thing in the game. But very nice game from both players. We saw some great movement from Cloud, and we are going to go ahead and move on to game number 3. This is PGO Milncraft signing off.